Greetings, wanderers. 6 school kids, a dense woodland, and a mysterious old well. What could go wrong? Grab your lantern, charge your wards, and take a look at your palm. You've been marked for death. The woods behind St. Enoch's was not forbidden, but they were forgotten. A place where the trees grew too close together. Their trunks slick with lichen, their roots knotted like veins beneath the soil. The air hung heavy with damp and decay. It was the last Friday of term when 6 boys, Callum, Reese, Jamie, Finn, Tom and Eli, slipped through the rusted fence behind the science block, chasing a fox with a torn ear and a limp. They weren't looking for trouble. Just a shortcut. Just a thrill. They found the well by accident. It sat in a clearing choked with nettles and bramble. No bucket, no rope. Just a ring of stone slick with moss, and a mouth that exhaled a breath like old teeth and stagnant moisture. The air around it was colder, still, as if even the trees leaned back in fear. They peered inside, and something peered back. Running as fast as they could back to the safe confines of the school grounds, no one spoke of it afterward. Not directly. Not wanting to admit that they were scared, or that they'd seen something. But that night, each boy developed a mark on his palm. A perfect black circle. They joked about it at first. A rash or a burn, a coincidence. But the mark didn't fade. It grew and it deepened. And when they pressed their hands to their ears, they all swore they could hear something. Callum was the first to feel it. He woke gasping. His lungs felt thick with something that wasn't air. His sheets were soaked, but not with sweat. Something that smelled like iron and pond water. His dreams had been full of water. Not with waves or drowning, just an eerie stillness. The mark on his palm had changed. The skin around it was peeling now, curling back like petals left too long in the sun. And beneath it was a nub of flesh, pulsing, as if something was breaking free. He wore gloves from then on to hide it. He smeared ointment in hope of making it fade, and he told absolutely no one. But the mark continued to grow. In the school showers, he screamed, his fingernails falling off one by one, clattering like coins on the tile. And beneath them, the skin was soft and black, like the inside of a drowned mouth. His breath came in bubbles and his eyes turned glassy. From that day, he stopped speaking. He stopped eating. He began walking the perimeter of the woods during lunch, tracing the edge like a dog scenting something buried. They found him face down at the edge of the clearing 3 days later. His body was bloated, his skin pale and veined with green. His palm was split open, and inside, a tiny perfect well carved into the meat of his hand. No one could explain it. No one wanted to. The others didn't speak of it. But that night they each dreamt of water. Still, silent and waiting. Reese had always been the quiet one. Reserved, observant. He noticed things the others didn't like. How the trees around the well leaned away from it. How the moss grew in perfect spirals. And how the air felt cold even in sunlight. After Callum's death, he stopped speaking altogether. Not out of fear, but out of calculation. He was trying to understand. The mark on his palm had changed. It no longer looked like a rash, it looked deliberate, etched. The skin around it had hardened, darkened like old wax. And when he pressed it, it didn't hurt. It just pulsed. He began drawing symbols in his notebooks, on his arms, on the walls of his bedroom. Spirals, runes that seemed to write themselves. He didn't know what they meant, only that they felt strangely familiar, like remembering a language he'd never learned but had heard in passing. His blood felt as though it had thickened. He could feel moving slower beneath his skin. He bruised without cause, and his breath came in short, wet bursts, like something was pressing on his lungs from the inside. One morning, he stood in front of the mirror and saw nothing. Not a trick of the light, not a shadow, just complete absence. The mirror only showed the well instead. The reflection rippled and then stilled, and in the centre of the well, something moved. He didn't scream and he didn't run, he just turned, walked to his desk and began carving the mark into his palm with a compass needle. Out of necessity. They found him in the school library at the end of the day, folded backwards over a desk. His spine snapped like a twig. His eyes were open and his mouth was full of soil, and his palm was missing entirely. And in its place, a hole, perfectly round, damp and breathing. The well. Jamie had laughed when Callum died. Not cruelly, just nervously. A bark of disbelief in the locker room. Jamie was the loud one, the joker, the boy who made horror into punchlines, not afraid of anything, he'd bragged. But the mark on his palm didn't laugh. It darkened and hardened like the others. The skin around it cracked like old paint. He wore plasters, he made excuses. It itched when he slept, and when he pressed it to his lips, it tasted like soil. That afternoon he began coughing. At first it was dry, sickly like something caught in his throat. Then wet, then finally thick. Coughing up sputum, he spat into the sink and saw strange clumps, dark and fibrous, worms, roots, earth. Even his breath smelled like grave dirt, like the mark on his palm. His voice turned hoarse and then just vanished completely. He couldn't scream, he couldn't make jokes, he just stopped speaking altogether. He dug at his palm with a penknife, trying to excise the mark, erase it completely, but the mark bled roots that wrapped around the blade and pulled it inside. His hand had swollen, then split, and inside was moss. He was last seen 2 days later, walking into the woods barefoot, his eyes milky, his mouth full of moss. His breath came in bubbles, and his skin veined with green. The well swallowed him without a sound. No splash, just silence. Finn had documented everything. He filmed the woods, the well, the mark. He recorded his dreams, catalogued the changes in his body with clinical precision. It was his way of fighting back, of making sense of the senseless. But the footage glitched. audio was reversed. His voice, once steady and sardonic, began speaking in tongues he didn't recognize. And the mark on his palm grew darker and deeper until it looked less like a wound and more like an eye, watching him, recording him. Days passed and he stopped sleeping, spending time obsessing instead. His eyes bled, thin lines of red traced down his cheeks like tears. He carved the well's shape into his walls, his desk, his skin. The symbols had to be repeated, understood. 3 days later, his laptop began turning on by itself, playing footage he hadn't filmed. The clearing, the well, and a figure standing at the edge. Back turned away from the camera, whispering his name. He tried to delete the files, but they reappeared every time. He tried to burn the tapes, and they only returned. And then one night, he vanished. And his room was empty, save for a single tape playing in a loop. It was the sound of breathing, and beneath it, the sound of his own voice, distorted, saying, "I see you, I see you, I see you." No one spoke of it, no one dared, they just marked it as another suicide, part of a strange pact, they had said. And Tom didn't believe in curses or ghosts or haunted wells. He believed in logic, in control. And after Finn vanished, Tom stopped waiting for foolish and illogical answers about false pacts and started getting answers himself. He researched the symbols, protection sigils, and burned sage. He drew salt circles in his bedroom. He wore gloves to bed, and he whispered prayers to gods he didn't believe in. But the mark on his palm grew anyway. It bit into his flesh, gnawed at his bones. The skin around it blistered and split. His hand swelled, turned black, and opened like a flower. And inside was a piece of rope, frayed and knotted. He began dreaming of hangings in the woodlands for 3 consecutive nights. Not falling, not dying, just the moment before, the stretch, the silence, the breath held too long. He woke with rope burns on his neck, and then he stopped sleeping altogether. He stopped speaking and began obsessively tying knots in shoelaces or headphone cords, bed sheets. The knots felt familiar, like memory, like something he'd learned long ago and promised to remember. They found him in the gym, hanging from the rafters 2 days later. His eyes were open and his mouth was full of moss. His palm was missing, and in its place, a knot. Eli was the last. He didn't speak after Tom died. Not to teachers or friends or even his own mother, who had found him one morning standing barefoot in the garden. The mark on his palm had stopped changing. It no longer pulsed or bled, and had settled into something quiet. A perfect red circle. He understood, though he couldn't explain how. And for 3 days he collected stones, 6 of them, and he washed them in silence and wrapped them in cloth before naming them. Callum, Reese, Jamie, Finn, Tom, and Eli. And on the 3rd and final night, he walked into the woods alone. No flashlight, no phone, just the stones, cradled in his arms like offerings. The trees seemed to part for him, and the air felt as if it held its breath. Eli knelt beside the well. One by one, he dropped the stones into the mouth. Each made a sound, but not a splash as you'd expect. A sigh, a whisper. He spoke their names, not loudly, not mournfully, just clearly, as if reciting something sacred. The well whispered back. He leaned forward, pressed his marked palm to the moss-slick stone, and exhaled. Eli's body was never found. The next morning the well had been sealed. The stones were gone. And in the schoolyard, 6 trees had grown, twisted and black. And beneath one of them, carved into the bark, a perfect circle. They say the well was dug before the school was built, before the town had a name. It wasn't made for water. The spirit that lives there is not human. It has no face, no name. It's breath and soil and memory. It's the echo of a promise made long ago. 6 lives, every cycle to keep the mouth closed, to keep the silence intact. 6 boys, always marked. The circle on the palm is not a curse, it's a seal, a ritual. Each death feeds the well. Each breath stolen keeps the spirit dreaming. It's said that if fewer die, it wakes. And if more die, it hungers further for bloodlust. No one remembers who made the pact. No one remembers why. The trees do. Stones do. And sometimes the spirit forgets to sleep. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it chooses early. And when it does, the mark returns. 6 must die. 6 must be named. 6 must be buried in silence. And there the tale ends for now, but the echoes will always remain. If you've enjoyed your stay here in my domain, leave your mark, a review, a whisper, a 5-star sigil. Until next time, wanderers, I've been Fauna Blakewell, and you've been changed forever.